Hey guys, welcome back. So now for this one, we're going to talk about more Immortal Hulk and the return of his father, Brian Banner, aka Devil Hulk, and a couple other new things in Marvel Legacy that make this possible by bringing back a lot of pre-existing elements and sew them together in a new way. So if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to catch these spills every week, and don't forget to hit that bell up top so we can squad up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so previously on this channel, we've talked about the introduction, if you will, to the Immortal Hulk in Marvel Legacy, which took place in Avengers No Surrender, which was pretty insane because the Hulk turned Avengers No Surrender into Avengers We Surrender. Like, his presence in that event was literally a game changer. But one of the purposes of that event was to establish this new perspective of the Hulk, but also build on top of the history of why he keeps coming back, which would be further explained and explored in his solo series, which we would come to find out it would also explore his new abilities that we had seen in No Surrender by giving them a more thorough explanation and tying them deeper into the Hulk mythology, and doing so in a rather brilliant way, if I might add. And so now the way that we're introduced to this throughout the Immortal Hulk series is by way of a reporter from the Arizona Herald by the name of Jacqueline McGee. And ever since the most recent resurrection of the Hulk in Avengers No Surrender, she has been chasing down different Hulk sightings, desperately trying to get face to face with Bruce Banner. And at this point, for the most part, there's just been sightings, and most people still believe that Banner is dead as a result of what took place in Civil War II when he was killed by Hawkeye. But because of her obsession with the Hulk that really started with an encounter that she had with the Hulk as a child, we find that she has been obsessing to pursue the opportunity to ask Banner the question she has burning within. And for the most part throughout the series, we always catch her being one step behind, and usually appearing where Banner's been up until now. And her luck turns around when she gets a call from Walter Langowski, who is Sasquatch from Alpha Flight. And I gotta say, Walter Langowski is the perfect character to introduce the concept that not only will give us the return of Brian Banner, but also stir up more lingering truths about the Incredible Hulk that are based upon the existing history of the Incredible Hulk. And we'll get to that in just a minute. But first, the reason why he's calling is because he notices that Jacqueline isn't just trying to get a quick story, but instead, through reading her articles, he notices that she's the only person actively pursuing Bruce Banner. And this urges him to call her because recently Carol Danvers, who has recently become the leader of the Alpha Flight space program, she has had to bench Walter because his recent over-aggressive change in behavior. And because of his history, which we'll get to in a little bit, but because of his history and his origin, which are all on file, Carol Danvers makes the evaluation and decides that it's best for him to take a leave before history repeats itself. And I like that she acknowledges that Walter has been a part of Alpha Flight long before the space program, and she understands that that alone can make it tough for a new leader to come in and make this kind of call. But with Carol knowing the history of Sasquatch and the danger that comes along with knowing that he was originally the vessel that had traded places with Tanarak, the conqueror of beasts, and who by way of Walter entered this world and initially just carried on as Sasquatch as if it was Walter inside. And for that reason, a lot of this behavior seems too familiar. But on top of that, Carol Danvers has also noticed that the entire time that she has been working with him on the low orbit space station, that he has spent more time as Sasquatch than he has as Walter, which is very true if you go back and read those issues of Captain Marvel, which I believe is like volume 9 at that point. But at the time that she benches him, her mentioning that was just an observation. And at that point, she had only assumed that him spending more time as Sasquatch was the reason for this change in behavior. And little did she know that she was right, and there's so much more. Because if we go back to the original origin of Sasquatch and how his creation was an intentional attempt to duplicate the transformation of the Incredible Hulk, which was also backed and supported by James Hudson, aka Guardian from Alpha Flight, who took over funding after Walter had spent all of his money from playing professional football for the Green Bay Packers. And Walter's desire to become the Hulk, it stems from his history with Bruce Banner, because before Walter met Bruce at Pennsylvania State, he had originally studied at the University of Calgary, where his focus was on physics, but it wasn't until he met Banner at Penn State to when that focus changed to gamma radiation, which he studied alongside with Bruce Banner. But his desire to want to become the Hulk, that was ignited back when General Ross broke the news to the world that Bruce Banner and the Hulk were the same person. And Walter at this time, he had known that some time ago Banner had took a private project that was super top secret for the government dealing with gamma radiation, and Walter knew that was the incident that transformed Banner Banner into the Hulk. And because at this time Walter had made a few million from playing professional football, he then used over $1 million from that, which after all the houses, cars, and taxes, well, not in that order, was probably all the money he had left. But after taking an insane amount of money out of his own pocket and also using research gathered from other incidents involving gamma radiation, he then took upon himself to create a controlled environment where he could reproduce Banner's incident. And his similar way of thinking just goes back to his days in college at Penn State with Banner, to where they both were two students out of a minority group who weren't just going to school to get their name put on a piece of paper, but instead their motivation was to learn something and apply that knowledge into something useful. And I gotta say, Marvel Legacy going back and revisiting this and adding dialogue to what the canon had only showed us as images, ever so carefully sprinkling a little retcon in there, like that is how it's supposed to be done. And when they do this, what we find out in Immortal Hulk is that when Walter switched majors to Gamma Theory, it's almost like Banner just called him out, because what we know from the history of them doing this to better the world and make the most out of their education, Banner recognized that Walter was just doing this for people to like him. And sure, from Walter's perspective, he's looking at it like, okay, Banner's like, okay, you throw the football and gamma radiation, that's mine. But I would beg to argue, because there's three sides to every story. But fast forward to the transformation and the importance of the location that it takes place. 3 years after finding out the true identity of the Incredible Hulk being Bruce Banner, Walter carries out this experiment at the Arctic Circle in an Alpha Flight facility, once again provided by James Hudson. And when he does this, he actually opens a portal to the realm of beasts, linking himself with Tanarak, the conqueror of beasts. And this also is nothing new, because we discovered this back in early issues of Alpha Flight when we finally got the origin of Sasquatch, and Narya, aka Snowbird, got the revelation through a dream that his transformation was truly a transposition, and that anytime Walter would transform into Sasquatch, that it was truly Tanarak. And because of that, here early on, it was established that this specific gamma radiation transformation that is very similar to that of Bruce Banner, that it holds a connection and has opened the doorway to the realm of beasts. And when Marvel Legacy refers back to this by way of the Immortal Hulk, it's done seamlessly. And what we find out in the Immortal Hulk with Sasquatch specifically is that when he did this here at the Arctic Circle, because of its location and its history, the gamma process that he duplicated opened this doorway to the realm of monsters that would now be known as the Green Door. And so now this Green Door, which has always existed from the origins of Sasquatch, it is very important, because this door, it allows a passageway to the realm of the great beasts, which we now know share a connection to gamma radiation. And this is how Sasquatch ended up making his connection to Tanarak here at the Arctic Circle. And located within the Arctic Circle, you also have the Eye of the World. And this location is where the separation between Earth and the realm of beasts is at its weakest. And so now with this green door being created, it allows free passage for any beast to enter into this realm. And as long as Walter is in the form of Sasquatch, he's holding that door open that breaches the mystical barrier that contains these beasts. And so now the way that this connects to Brian Banner, the father of Bruce Banner, who is also known as the Devil Hulk, who was once exposed to gamma radiation during an accident at his job working on a process to create nuclear energy. He had been exposed to gamma radiation in that accident. And even though he had never literally hulked out from the time of that incident all the way up to his actual time of death, Banner as a child could always see that beast or monster within him. And his father has always predicted, because of his abusive childhood and because of the monster that he believed Bruce's grandfather to be, this caused Brian to swear that he would never have a child in fear of passing that monster gene on. But when he went to school, he fell in love with Rebecca. They had a child, Bruce Banner, who inherited those genes passed down from his grandfather, but in addition, the radiation from his father, Brian Banner. And as a result, this is what gave Bruce Banner the unique outcome of becoming the Incredible Hulk, which for Banner runs deeper than any other and cannot be duplicated precisely because he has gamma radiation in his DNA. And for his father, Brian Banner, during Chaos War, when he was resurrected by the Chaos King, it's here where we first truly get the transformation of Brian Banner into the Devil Hulk, which was one part a result to his exposure to gamma radiation and that becoming a part of him. And we also know that back when this happened, he was able to Hulk out because the dead gained strength on how the living perceived them, which also made him insanely huge and gave him the appearance that we had seen previously with your Devil Hulk and Guilt Hulk put together, which we had seen prior to this only manifested in Banner's subconscious. But with Brian Banner, even before his death, already having the adequate ingredients to be considered a Hulk, I believe that the reason why he didn't Hulk out before he died is best described described in your original run of The Incredible Hulk, where we find out that there are 3 parts, Guardian, Glow, and Goblin, who explained that by way of the Gamma explosion, Bruce Banner was able to physically become the monster that was hidden deep within and was physically molded into that monster through the process of that Gamma explosion. And we've also seen in previous issues that for Bruce, in his subconscious, these 3 represented the Gamma explosion, his mother, and his father. And in his mind, that's how he would perceive them. But with the Guardian mentioning that she had failed Bruce during the time of the Gamma bomb explosion, and the Guardian's responsibility being preservation, her failure in combination to the incident and what was already within Bruce collectively allowed his transformation to take place. And just to be clear, these 3 are not figments of Bruce's imagination, but they are actually the personification of his rage, self-preservation, and reason, which we saw when Doctor Strange sent Banner to the Crossroads when Nightmare tried to use the Hulk to attack Strange, which was his fellow teammate on the Defenders. But I also believe that much like Bruce Banner, Brian Banner also possesses his own incarnation of these 3, but the reason why Brian Banner didn't change in his incident was because his Guardian did not fail. At least not yet. Not in the incident, but his Guardian did fail at the time of his death, which is what allowed the resurrected Brian Banner to Hulk out in the Chaos War event where he was resurrected by the Chaos King. And in that storyline, Brian Banner had mentioned that he was in hell prior to his resurrection, but after Bruce Banner turned the tables, faced his fears, which weakened the Devil Hulk, at the time of his second death, the beast had crumbled away. And what we come to find out now, by way of the Immortal Hulk, is that this green door that Sasquatch has opened, and he continues to hold open the longer that Walter stays in his Sasquatch form, we find out that this door is what allowed the Devil Hulk to return. But this return comes with a catch, because the first time we see him, he is taken control of and later on killed Jailbait, whose powers she got from the leader, but they originate from gamma radiation. And this led her boyfriend Lewis, also known as Hotshot, to seek help from a priest claiming that his girlfriend had been possessed by the devil himself. And he went on rambling uncontrollably about a green door, but this didn't go on for long because the Hulk eventually crashed in, stopped him, and like broke both of his hands so he couldn't blast nobody. And shortly after, Hotshot was arrested, leaving many to believe that he actually killed her. But because this wasn't true and nobody would believe him, on top of the mysterious death of his girlfriend, we later find out that while he was in prison, he ended up taking his own life. And at this point, Jacqueline McGee, she's the one putting all this information together. She interviewed the Reverend, different witnesses at the church, some of which who visited Hotshot while he was in prison, and now she's finally been able to meet up with and have a talk with Walter Legowski. But when they meet up to have this talk, a couple of guys who are usually quiet at this spot get into this strange argument which escalates quickly, and one of them stabs Walter in the back, almost like they were influenced by something to kill Walter. But Jacqueline rushes Walter to the emergency room, and it's there, while she's waiting, that she's met by Bruce Banner. And it's here in this quick conversation which catches Jacqueline by surprise. Like, she's so surprised that he's here that she doesn't even get to ask her a question. But when Bruce mentions that he was led here because the Hulk can pick up radiation signatures, which all humans let off, but he knows Walter's because it's very similar to his own. And that's all due to the process which created Sasquatch. And it's also how Bruce knew after the doctors thought Walter was dead, when Walter's body transformed into Sasquatch, Bruce could sense it by way of the Hulk, giving Jacqueline and the nearby security the heads up to evacuate the hospital. But when Bruce went to go see Walter to kind of talk him down and de-escalate the situation, Sasquatch responded, "I'm not Walter." And this is because Brian Banner, who had previously taken control of Jailbait, had also made his way into Walter's body, and when Walter and Jacqueline had met for their interview, he had used his gamma radiation influence to influence 2 regular guys, because all humans emit radiation, but he had used these guys to kill Walter so he could take over his body. And when Banner walks in, he immediately kills him in order to bring out the Immortal Hulk. And through the clues that Brian Banner had left, Bruce had figured out that the other possessions were only to get his attention, but it wasn't till now when he actually met face to face with this monster that he realized that it was his father, Brian Banner. But it's also here that we're given the hint that 2 others, 3 killers total, are in the body of Sasquatch, and that they made their way through the green door because of Walter staying in that form over the course of months. And we're not told exactly what this means, whether it means he has a guardian and a demon with no light, or if it's other beasts that are crossed through with him. We just don't know at this point. But in order to stop him, the Hulk absorbs his gamma radiation, much like we seen him do with Robert Maverick back in Avengers No Surrender, and this returns the Beast back into the regular form of Walter, giving Jacqueline the opportunity to ask the Hulk the question she's been waiting to ask him all this time. Because ever since she was a little girl and the Hulk had rampaged through and destroyed her home, and she was like 15 at the time, but when the Hulk had destroyed her home and pretty much her whole neighborhood, and from then she had always been told not to look him in the eye. And in this fight, even though his dad gouged his eyes out, she kind of waits for them to grow back, and after they grow back, she tells the Hulk she has questions, and the Hulk is like, okay, one question. And her one question is, how do I become what you are? Because that is what she is obsessed with ever since she was 15. And the Hulk really doesn't acknowledge this. He just walks away. He just tells her to go home and he walks away. And this reminds me a lot of that same instance when Banner was sent to the Crossroads by Doctor Strange. And this is another reason why I say Sasquatch is just perfect for this whole thing. Because when that happened, Alpha Flight reached in with this like fishing rod thing with like a red beam that was like the line to wheel back in Banner. And in there, when Banner had separated from the Hulk, he told Walter, you can have him. Because for a while after Walter's resurrection, all he really had was like this silver and red kind of robot thing that he was in. But the offer to sacrifice his own life so that Walter would have a body, this just encouraged Walter to be the hero that Bruce inspired him to be. And after using this connection as a way to speak through the Hulk to Banner, Walter gives up possession of the Hulk, causing the Hulk to merge back with Bruce, and they just wheel him in. And Bruce was just like, dang it, Walter, I told you can have the Hulk and you just gonna give him right back to me. But it's like the latter part of that story really told us how badly Bruce Banner did not want to be trapped in this body with the Hulk. And it just speaks volumes to his response to Jacqueline, who's literally begging to live this nightmare. But after the Hulk walked away and Walter wakes up, Walter tells her that he's gone, that Sasquatch is gone, and how usually he can sense Sasquatch in his human form, that all of that is gone and he senses none of it anymore. And that's because the Hulk absorbed everything. Brian Banner, what I'm guessing to be Sasquatch, and who knows what else the third is. Because really, at this point, your guess is as good as mine. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Let me know who you think the three are. And I put out just a few possibilities of who the three killers might be, but I want to know what you guys think down in the comments. And also, if Banner's now holding the door open, what else could we see either pass through that door or manifest from Banner now that he's absorbed Sasquatch and taken Walter's place? But let me know down in the comments and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.